continuous charge distribution and how do we determine electric field for continuous charge distributions. If charge is distributed throughout the body, we call such a distribution as continuous charge distribution. Like charge distributed over the length of a body, it can be on the surface or throughout the volume. So discrete charges, if charges exist separately like Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4, we call them as discrete charges. For determining electric field for discrete charge, we know we use the principle of superimposition. Then coming to three different types of distribution which we'll study in this chapter. First one is linear charge distribution. If charge is distributed throughout the length of a body, we call it as linear charge distribution. And for determining the electric field for linear charge distribution, we define a quantity called linear charge density. It is defined as charge per unit length of a body, represented by the letter lambda, which is dq by dl. SI unit of lambda is coulomb per meter, and you can find electric field by using the relation E is equal to integral of k here represents 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Lambda into dl is nothing but dq divided by r square. I repeat, E is integral of k into dq by r square. K is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Instead of dq, I have written it as lambda into dl. Then surface charge distribution. If charge is distributed throughout the surface of a body, it is called surface charge distribution, defined or surface charge density, represented by the letter sigma. It is defined as charge per unit area. SI unit will be coulomb per meter square. And for finding out the electric field, here we use the relation E is equal to integral of k is nothing but 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Again, instead of dq, we replace it as sigma into ds by r square. General formula would be integral k into dq by r square. But wherever dq comes, that is replaced with the corresponding term. Here for surface charge distribution, dq will be sigma into ds. Similarly, volume charge distribution. If charge is distributed throughout the volume of a body, it is called volume charge distribution. Volume charge density is charge per unit volume, represented by the letter rho. SI unit is coulomb per meter cube. And for finding the electric field, here we use the relation k into rho dV by r square, where k is 1 by 4 pi. In continuous charge distribution, I told you that to determine electric field for linear or volume or surface charge distribution, we use integral formula, that is integral of k into dq by r square. So instead of using rigorous integration formulas, we can also determine the electric field by making use of another physical quantity, that is electric flux. So let us see what is flux, and then we will study how to determine electric field for continuous charge distributions. So flux is a Greek word which means to flow. In electrostatics, it is defined or it gives you the number of field lines passing through a given surface, represented by the letter phi, and it is a scalar quantity. Then flux is defined as the dot product of electric field and area vector E dot A, or E into A into cos theta. We know area is a scalar quantity. We are giving a direction to it and making it into a vector to determine the electric flux. The direction of area vector is always taken as outward normal, and flux depends on the angle between E and A. SI unit Newton meter square per coulomb. If you take a small elemental area instead of total area, then flux is written as phi is equal to integral E dot ds, where ds is a small elemental area. Now coming to Gauss law in electrostatics, it states that the total flux passing through a Gaussian surface is 1 by epsilon naught times the net charge enclosed by the surface. So here Gaussian surface is one imaginary surface which we construct around the charges for determining electric field or to calculate electric flux. See, we know flux is E dot ds. According to Gauss law, it is equal to Q by epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is nothing but the permittivity of free space. Now regarding the Gaussian surface or choosing the Gaussian surface, we need to remember these points. So important points regarding Gauss law. The first point is the surface chosen for applying Gauss law is called Gaussian surface. Okay, just now I told you around a charges, whatever surface you choose, it is called a Gaussian surface. And while choosing the Gaussian surface, see that this surface does not pass through discrete charges. Just now I told you what is a discrete and what is continuous charge. So your surface should be so chosen such that either charges should be inside or outside the Gaussian surface. Never choose it on the charge. But this rule is not applicable in case of continuous charge distribution. Only for discrete charges, it should not pass through a discrete charge. Then Gauss law also says that you can choose any shape and size. The shape and size of the Gaussian surface does not matter, provided you know how to find out the area bound by it. Now Gauss law, as I told you, is helping in determining the electric field for continuous charge distributions with less calculations. Whenever there is some symmetry in your charge distribution, we can go and apply Gauss law to calculate the electric field. And the next point is, this is a very important point regarding Gauss law. The term Q which appears on the right hand side of the Gauss law relation, that is Q by epsilon naught, there Q represents all the charges which are inside the Gaussian surface. I repeat, Q appearing on the right hand side of the equation is only the charge which is present inside your chosen Gaussian surface. Whereas the electric field what appears on the left hand side, integral E dot ds, the E whatever you are writing on the left hand side is due to all the charges, not only the charges which are inside the Gaussian surface. Again I repeat, electric field is due to all the charges, whereas Q is the charge which is only enclosed by the Gaussian surface. And this Gauss law is nothing different from Coulomb's law. It's actually derived from Coulomb's inverse square law. So sometimes they ask you a question. If Coulomb's inverse square law fails, what would happen to Gauss law? Gauss law also becomes invalid because Gauss law is another form of Coulomb's inverse square law. So this is all about the Gauss law and the rules for choosing the Gaussian surface. Now using these rules, now let us see how to apply Gauss law and then find out the electric field for various continuous charge distributions. So look at some few applications which are based on Gauss law. Okay, we have studied that Gauss law is the total flux is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times the charge inside the surface. Now look at the first question. A charge of 10 microcoulomb is placed at the center of a cube. Okay, this is the center of the cube. And we need to find the flux emerging from one surface and also determine the flux through the cube. Okay, there are 3 bits. Determine the flux through the cube. Since this cube is enclosing a charge q, the field lines will emerge from all directions. So the total flux for the first bit passing through all the surfaces would be the charge enclosed divided by epsilon naught, that is q by epsilon naught. Now come for B bit. What is the flux emerging from one surface? See, for 6 surfaces of a cube, flux is q by epsilon naught. So for one surface, answer would be 1/6 of q divided by epsilon naught. And the C bit says, what will be the flux emerging if the cube is replaced by a sphere? See, if you replace a cube with a sphere, if this is your charge q, instead of cube we have taken one sphere. Even this sphere is enclosing the same amount of charge, so there is no change in the flux. Flux remains as Q divided by epsilon naught. So there are 3 point charges Q1, Q2 and Q3 as shown in the figure, and you need to find the flux through the surface S1, S2 and S3. Look at the first surface S1. This is the surface S1. S1 is enclosing a charge Q1. So therefore, flux through S1 would be the charge enclosed is Q1 divided by epsilon naught. Then flux passing through the surface S2. This surface is S2 and it is enclosing the charges Q2 and Q3. So the flux would be Q2 plus Q3 divided by epsilon naught. And coming to S3, if this is your surface, all the 3 charges are inside S3. So flux through S3 would be Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 whole divided by. So in this question, a charge Q is placed at the vertex of a cube and you need to find the flux from all the surfaces and also the flux from each surface. So since the charge is at the corner of the cube, 1/8 of the charge is inside this cube, the remaining part is outside. So flux through the whole cube would be 1/8 times of Q by epsilon naught. Okay, you can imagine, say if I take a circle at the center of 4 squares, it's a 2-dimensional structure. But since it's a 3-dimensional structure, it's a sphere, try to project these 4 squares in the upward direction, you will get a semicircle. Project 4 squares in the downward direction, you will get another semicircle. So 8 cubes will form one sphere. So 1/8 of the sphere is inside a cube. So the flux also becomes equal to 1/8. Now what is the flux emerging from each surface? Since the charge is at one corner, if you draw the field lines emerging from this, the field line is parallel to this surface. And one more field line I am drawing here, it is also parallel to this surface, the shaded one. And even the field line is parallel to the behind surface. So out of 6 surfaces, flux through 3 surfaces is 0, because we know when the field line is on the plane, there is no flux passing through this shaded portion, no flux through this vertical portion, and no flux through the behind portion also. So the remaining flux, that means this total flux, is distributed only for 3 different surfaces: the front surface, bottom and the side. So flux through each surface would be 1/3 of total, that is Q by 8 epsilon naught. So answer comes as Q by 24 epsilon naught. So in this question there are 2 charges, 10 and -5 microcoulomb, and you need to find out the ratio of the flux through S1 and S2. First look at this surface S1. This is enclosing a charge of 10 microcoulomb. So flux through the first surface will be 10 by epsilon naught. I'll write it as equation 1. I'm not converting the unit. Then flux through S2, the second surface. Inside the second surface we have 10 microcoulomb as well as -5 microcoulomb. The net flux would become 5 microcoulomb divided by epsilon naught. Call this as equation 2. So the ratio of these 2 fluxes would be 2:1. So look at this question. There are 3 hemispherical surfaces and you have a charge Q placed at different locations, and we need to find the flux through all these surfaces. For the first diagram, observe the charge. The charge is inside this sphere, so the flux through the first surface would be Q by epsilon naught. Now in the second case, the charge is outside the surface, so the flux through the sphere or a hemispherical surface would become 0, because no charge is enclosed by this hemisphere. In the third case, this is the charge. If you complete this diagram, for one complete sphere, flux would be Q by epsilon naught, but for a hemisphere, half of it, you get the flux half of Q by epsilon naught. So in this question, we are given again 3 hemispherical surfaces. The question is to find out the flux through plane and curved surface of a hemisphere for the given arrangement. So here we have a uniform electric field in all the 3 cases. So let us look at the first one. So if you observe this hemisphere, there is no net charge inside the hemisphere. In all the 3 cases, none of them is enclosing any charge. Since no charge is enclosed, flux through the plane surface, okay, the shaded one is the plane surface, plus flux through curved surface. Okay, PS is plane surface and CS I am writing it as curved surface. Sum should always be 0. Now look at this plane surface. I'll calculate the flux through the plane surface. We know it is E dot A. Electric field is E. And for this surface, this is the direction of normal and area vector. Angle between them is 90 degrees. Electric field is horizontal. Area vector is outward normal. Angle is 90. So flux is E into A into cos 90, that is 0. So flux through plane surface is 0. Since flux through plane surface is 0, flux through curved surface would also become 0, because sum should be 0. If one of them is 0, the other one automatically becomes 0. Now come to this case. Again, no charge is enclosed by this hemisphere. So flux through plane surface plus flux through curved surface must be 0. For the plane surface, this is your area vector. And electric field is acting upward. So flux through plane surface is E. The plane surface area is pi r square. Angle between them is 180 degrees because area vector is outward normal. Field is acting upward. Cos 180, which is minus 1. So flux through plane surface is minus E into pi r square. And since the sum of these two surfaces flux should be 0, flux through curved surface would be plus E into pi into r square. Now the last case. So this is also a uniform electric field which is acting along this line. And we need to find out the flux through plane and the curved surface. Use the same method. Flux through plane surface plus flux through curved surface must be 0. Since no charge is enclosed, whatever field lines are entering are leaving from the other side. Now for the plane surface, this is your area vector. Electric field is along this line and area vector is acting downward. Since this angle is given as theta, till here it is 90. Angle between E and A is 90 plus theta. So flux through plane surface is minus of E into area is pi r square, not minus, sorry, E into pi r square into cos of angle I am taking 90 plus theta. And we know cos of 90 plus theta would be sin theta. So flux through the plane surface is E into pi r square multiplied with sin theta. So in second quadrant, you will get a minus sign. This is the flux through plane surface. Then flux through curved surface, sum should anyway be 0. It should be plus E into pi r square into sin theta. Okay, that would be the answer. So in the given figure, they have given you a square of side 10 centimeter. An electric field of 10 Newton per Coulomb is directed as shown in the figure. And they are asking you to find out the flux in each of these cases. So for this square, we know area vector is directed outward, perpendicular to the plane of the paper. Even here it is perpendicular to the plane of the paper. So angle between electric field and area vector is 90 degrees. So flux would be E into A into cos 90. So your answer is 0. So the same would be the answer even for this question. Plane is this, area vector is perpendicular to electric field, which is outward normal. So flux would again become 0. So all this data is given to confuse you. Remember, the angle is 90, so whatever be the value of E and A, answer will come out to be 0. Now look at this. Now look at the next question. So here we need to determine the flux through the cube. Given electric field is 10 Newton per coulomb and the side of the cube is 0.1 meter. And this field is acting along x-axis. Okay, I'll give the direction. It is I cap. Okay, here also I'll take it as I cap. Now look at the first case. Field is constant and it is 10 Newton per coulomb in magnitude. So if you observe the field which is entering the cube, it is passing through two surfaces of the cube, the shaded surfaces, and emerging from this side. Flux is entering from the first surface. I'll call this as first surface, and it is coming out of second. Since the field is uniform, the magnitude of electric field for the first surface is directed along x-axis, and area vector for the first surface is outward normal, which is in negative x direction, whereas area vector for the second surface is in positive x direction. So this is the direction of area vector and this is the direction of area vector. So for A bit, flux through first surface is E into A into cos 180. E is 10. Area of this surface is 0.1 into 0.1, that is 0.1 square. Cos 180 is minus 1. That comes out to be, call this as equation 1. Minus of 0.1 Newton meter square per coulomb. Now flux through second surface. For the second surface, electric field is in positive x direction. Area vector is also in positive x direction. E into A into cos 0, that will be 0.1 Newton meter square per coulomb. Add the two values, the net flux would become 0 because whatever field lines are entering are leaving from the second surface. So now look at the second bit. In the previous case, the answer was 0 because the field was uniform. Now in the second case, field is 0.1x into I cap. That means as x is increasing, field is also increasing. It is no more a uniform field, it is non-uniform field. So let us find out for the B bit, flux through the first surface. It should be E dot A. So at the first surface, that means the first shaded portion, it is at a distance of 0.1 meter along x-axis. So electric field would be 0.1 into x. X has become 0.1. So 0.1 into 0.1. Direction is I cap. Dot. Area vector is in the opposite direction. Magnitude of the area vector is 0.1 into 0.1. Area of a square, and it is directed in minus I cap direction. So if you write it as I dot I, your answer would be 1. So 0.1 whole to the power 4 will be the first bit. Direction is minus. Okay, it's not direction. We take it as negative sign because it is entering the surface. Then coming to the flux through second surface. This is your second surface. The second surface is at a distance 0.1 plus 0.1, that is 0.2 meter along x-axis. So field would become, again I'm using same formula, E dot A. Field is 0.1 into the distance from origin till the second surface is 0.1 plus 0.1. That will become 0.2. Direction is I cap. This is one vector. into area vector is as it is, 10 to the power minus 2 in positive x direction. Okay, it is in positive x direction. So phi 2 will come out to be 2 into 10 to the power minus 4, because 0.1, 0.2 and 10 power minus 2, I am writing it as 10 to the power minus 4. I dot I is 1. Call this as equation 2. So one flux is negative, another flux is positive. So the net flux will be sum of these two values. So 2 into 10 power minus 4 minus 10 to the power minus 4. So your answer would be 1 into 10 to the power minus 4 Newton meter square per coulomb. In this question, there are two bits again. The first bit says there are 10 dipoles in a cube. What is the flux emerging from it? Okay, we know dipole is defined as equal and opposite charges, or a pair of equal and opposite charges at a finite distance. So even if you have 10 dipoles, the net charge of a dipole is 0. Since charge is 0, flux will also become a 0. Okay, that would be the answer for first bit. Now look at B bit. Flux entering the surface is phi 1 and leaving the surface is phi 2. Find the charge enclosed by the surface. So I told you the flux which is entering the surface is taken with negative sign. So phi 1 is, I write it as minus q1 divided by epsilon naught, implies q1 is equal to minus of phi 1 into epsilon naught. Call this as equation 1. Flux leaving the surface is taken as positive. It is q2 divided by epsilon naught, or q2 is equal to phi 2 into epsilon naught. Call this as equation 2. So you know q1 and you know the value of q2. So the total charge would be q1 plus q2. Add the two relations. You will get the answer phi 2 minus phi 1 into epsilon naught. Okay, so this would be the answer. Okay, the next question on flux is regarding a cone. It is said that when a charge small q is placed at a height h from a cone, the flux passing through the cone is q by 3 epsilon naught. Find the flux when the charge is placed at the same depth from the base. In the first case, it was at a height h from the base, and the flux through this cone is given as q by 3 epsilon naught. Now when this charge is kept at the same depth inside the cone, they are asking you to determine the flux. So for this type of question, okay, I will assume that this is the position of the charge which is at a height h. I'll call this as the first cone. Now close this diagram with another cone to form a closed figure. I took the first given condition and kept a charge at a height h, cover it with a cone. Now for these two cones put together, that means first and second cones put together, charge enclosed is q. So flux through first surface, this surface, plus flux through second surface should be equal to q by epsilon naught. I repeat, the flux of these two surfaces must be q by epsilon naught because this system is enclosing a charge q. Now already we know that flux through the first surface when the charge is at a height h is q by 3 epsilon naught. So phi 1 is q by 3 epsilon naught as per the given data. And we need to find the flux for this type of arrangement when the charge is at a depth equal to h. Phi 2 should be equal to q by epsilon naught. Implies phi 2 is equal to q by epsilon naught. Bring this term to the left hand side. 1 minus 1 by 3. So phi 2 should be equal to 2/3 of q divided by epsilon naught. Look at this question. This is an NCERT question. Okay, it is given that a charge of 5 coulomb is above a square plate whose side is 10 centimeter and you need to find the flux passing through this particular surface, and the height of the charge is given as 5 centimeter. That means the charge is 5 centimeter above the square plate. Now for solving this question, just like the previous one, the one which I told you for a cone, you construct a cube whose side is 10 centimeter. Okay, complete a cube such that the side of each edge is 10 centimeter. Now observe, the charge of 5 microcoulomb is exactly at the center of this particular cube. And we have already studied in the previous numerical, flux through one surface of a cube is 1/6 of total charge enclosed by epsilon naught. So the flux through this bottom surface of the cube, which is the surface which you are asked to determine, this surface would be only 1/6 of the total flux emerging from the cube. So that would be your answer. That's 1/6. Now you can put the values. Charge is 5 microcoulomb, 10 to the power minus 6. Epsilon naught is 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12. You can simplify this. 1 by 8.85 comes out to be 0.11 into 10 to the power 12. 5 into 10 power minus 6 divided by 6. Simplify it. 0.0, nearly 2 times, into 5, 10 to the power 6, or 0.1 into 10 power 6 Newton meter square per coulomb. Now for the same question, this is for the answer for the A bit. Now look at B bit. If the net flux emerging from the surface is 0, does it imply that the charge is not present inside the surface? So the answer for this question is no, because if the net charge emerging from the surface is 0, it may also happen like it is containing equal and opposite charges. Like plus 10 and minus 10, charges are present, but if the net charge is 0, the flux emerging from it will be 0. It doesn't mean that there is no charge. Charge may be present, but net charge must be equal to 0. Look at the question. A conducting sphere S1. Okay, the thick line represents a conductor, and this is intersecting a closed surface. This is one imaginary surface S2 as shown in the figure. A positive charge Q is placed at a point P from the sphere. What is the flux through this particular surface S2? In the absence of this charge, flux through the surface would have been 0. Now because you have kept a charge here and it is a conducting sphere, we know conducting sphere has large number of electrons in it. Due to induction, those electrons get attracted and a minus Q is deposited close to P. If minus Q charge is deposited here, this side you will have a charge plus Q. The net charge on the sphere is 0, but minus Q is towards P, plus Q is on the opposite side. And now you can understand S2 is enclosing a charge which is equal to plus Q. Therefore, flux passing through the surface S2 would be Q divided by epsilon naught. Okay, it's a logical question. You need to find out the flux through this surface, which is Q divided by epsilon naught. It is not 0. Okay, it is given that a charge Q is placed at a certain distance x from a disk. Okay, this is your disk. And you need to find the flux which is passing through the disk. To solve this question, first let us suppose, okay, this is how the field lines are passing through the disk from the charge, but this flux emerging from Q will be directed in all possible directions. So I will construct or imagine one sphere with Q as center. Taking the charge as center, imagine a sphere. Flux is emerging from this sphere. but we want the flux only through this shaded portion, that means through this particular cone. So we know that the total flux passing through the sphere is Q by epsilon naught, because this sphere is enclosing a charge Q. So the flux coming out of this cone would be area of cone, that means surface area of the cone, by area of sphere into Q by epsilon naught. That means only a fraction of this flux is passing through this cone. So now we need to find out the surface area of this particular cone, that means the circular portion of the cone. To get the area, okay, we will use integration. So I will enlarge the diagram. Assume that this is a cone which is a part of a circle, and we need to find out the area of this shaded portion. To get the area, I'll take this angle as theta. Okay, here also I'll consider this angle as theta. Both sides angle would be theta. So this is also theta. Take a small circular ring inside this base of the cone, which is at a distance r dash, and thickness is taken as dr dash. I repeat, I have imagined one small strip of the cone whose thickness is dr dash, which is at a distance small r dash from center. Now this small surface is subtending a small angle. This angle I'll call it as d alpha. Okay, now I will write the area of this small circular disc, what I have imagined. dA is equal to circumference 2 pi r dash into its thickness, that is dr dash. Again, from this particular triangle, if I take this angle as alpha from center till the region what I have considered. So what is the value of sine alpha equal to? Sine alpha is opposite side, which is r dash, divided by this distance, that I will call it as a radius. Okay, let me take this radius as capital R. Okay, radius of this particular cone. So r dash is equal to r sine alpha, then dA would become 2 pi, replace this r dash as r sine alpha into. Now dr dash is the length of the arc. I can write the length of the arc as r into d theta, that is radius I took it as r into d alpha. So the shaded portion's area is 2 pi r square sine alpha into d alpha. We need the total area, which is obtained by integration. Integral of dA would be 2 pi r square integral of sine alpha into d alpha. Okay, when I integrate this relation, we will get the total area as 2 pi r square, the limits of integration. So from center till this point, angle alpha changes from 0 to theta. So limits are from 0 to theta. Integral of sine theta into t theta, or sine alpha into d alpha, is minus cos alpha. Limits are from 0 to theta. So you get this area of the shaded portion as 2 pi r square into 1 minus cos theta. Actually it is cos theta minus cos 0. Cos 0 is anyway equal to 1. And once you get this value of A, we know the area of this whole sphere is 4 pi r square. So flux through the cone or this particular disc would be, area of the cone we have got 2 pi r square into 1 minus cos theta divided by 4 pi r square, it's the surface area of a sphere, into q by epsilon naught, or phi is equal to q by 2 epsilon naught into 1 minus cos theta. And once you get this result, you can remember this result. Flux passing through this disk or a cap like structure would be q by 2 epsilon naught into 1 minus cos theta. You can replace cos theta from this triangle now. That is q by 2 epsilon naught 1 minus, look at this triangle, what is cos theta equal to? Cos theta is adjacent side x divided by the hypotenuse. Okay, hypotenuse would be root over x square plus small r square. So this gives you the answer for this question. The charge q is at the center of the cylinder and you need to determine the flux through the plane and the curved surface. Okay, just now we have determined that when a charge q is placed at a distance x from a disk, flux is given by q by 2 epsilon naught into 1 minus cos theta for this arrangement. Okay, where theta is this angle. Now apply the same formula. Flux through the plane surface of the cylinder is q by 2 epsilon naught into 1 minus, what is cos theta from this triangle? If I take this angle as theta, it is adjacent side, that is L by 2 under root hypotenuse is r square plus L by 2 whole square. So flux through plane surface is q by 2 epsilon naught 1 minus, take LCM and simplify this relation, it is L by under root 4 r square plus L square. Now there are two plane surfaces and one curved surface. Flux through two plane surfaces plus flux through curved surface should be q by epsilon naught. So flux through curved surface will be q by epsilon naught minus 2 times flux through the plane surface. Already you know the formula for plane surface, substitute and simplify. So q by epsilon naught minus q by epsilon naught into 1 minus L by square root of 4r square plus L square. On simplification you will get the answer q by epsilon naught into L by under root 4r square plus L square.